Hey, everybody.
Oh, yes, y'all. Who's ready to get weird? Not me,
I'm
y'all.
tweeting this out right now, guys, because I'm a social media.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of social media, the media that is social, that's the social thing that people use, and I'm going to get off of Twitter. You guys, any of you done Facebook Live yet to do video, like live video chats with people?
Nope.
Only when I did it with you.
I've been doing it. I've been having a lot of fun because everybody who follows you on Facebook gets a notification. And again, like, as Brian's pointed out, like when they started posting video, it's, get on it while they're happy to promote it. And then, they're going to take it away from you like they do all the cool toys and whatever. But, and maybe that this is a sign of that is that, like, I did a thing yesterday, and I have right now, I had maybe like 50 people watching live, and it had click to see, and so it's like had 1,000 views. I don't know how they count those, but when it clicks to how many people they promoted it from, you see that blank white space there. I'm going to tell you what that says. I don't think we can read this. It says 55,000 people reached.
What?
Jesus Christ.
Just tells anybody who remotely has heard of you.
Yeah, 1 out of 55 of those actually watched long enough for the 2 seconds to count as a view or something.
Wow. Hey, I'm going to grab a Diet Coke real quick, and then we could jump in.
Did you hear that story about the Facebook Live user in Detroit?
No.
Became RoboCop.
Yeah, live on stream. Dude got shot while
Oh,
Facebook
wait,
Live.
really?
Yes, he got.
Oh, God. No, I did not mean to make that a joke about. I thought I was. All right. Well, anyway.
So Alex Murphy was recording live on Facebook. Go ahead.
Oh, jeez.
Was it Detroit? Maybe no. It was Chicago.
Yeah, no, I think I saw it, and I saw that opening beginning, and I got like 2 seconds in, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, I couldn't muster the courage
Oh
to
gosh,
watch it, but unfortunately,
did he live?
I believe he did.
Because that's the important part of the story. To him at least. That's well, I'm gonna lock my door next time I do a Facebook live stream and not do it from Detroit or Chicago. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
See, everybody's getting up and walking around.
Yeah. Hey, Justin.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Clean the house a little bit.
Yeah.
Ready to watch some wrestling tonight. It's WrestleMania Eve.
Are you
Excited?
Are you doing a watch along?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna be watching it right here. So if you're a WrestleMania fan, if you like the wrestling, then come on and stay on DiamondClub.tv. As soon as Weird Thing's over, we're gonna watch it.
So everything I heard about. Well, okay, so what was the thing that was on Friday? What was the thing on
Friday was their minor league, which is NXT.
Okay.
They did their own big pay-per-view thing.
And
Many of the internet wrestling commentariat, including myself, believe that promotion to be
superior.
where some of the best people in the world are performing now, and so there was a lot of excitement about that. It was very fun.
Yeah, I saw a lot of flutter about it online.
This is
Yeah.
which one? Hood Slam?
No, this was NXT. Hood Slam I went to, and then realized that I had overserved myself and left halfway through.
I realized I was overserved, and it's time to go vomit.
Luckily, I avoided puking, but definitely had to separate myself from the situation.
You think you're doing them a favor by saying yes to all those drinks. It's like, look how happy I'm making them by drinking. And then you realize I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah. No, this was, I think, I got to figure out a better way to commit to kind of a session beveraging. If I'm going to go for a couple hours, like the way we do it at like Dragon Con or even when I'm in Texas, where it's just like bunch of light beer. I think that's the way to go. None of these like heavy ass high alcohol.
You always think you want another IPA, though, right?
Yeah, well, because the thing is, I do, Brian. I do. The question is whether or not it wants me.
Email pulled up here. You don't do the hour count?
Oh no,
No.
that's
I do.
just people.
Whoa.
Sorry, that's me. That's me trying a bunch of things, trying to figure some things out.
Doing a lot of mood lighting in here.
That's right. I'm gonna tell a ghost story. You're not gonna believe it.
All right. Oh, we did get a Weird Tank email. I think she sent it to he or she sent it to you guys as well, but yeah.
Was it my mom again?
Yeah, no, she just sent it to me.
Service for sons to call their mother.
I will forward this to Andrew.
In fact, I call my mom all the time, but every conversation starts off with the 20-minute epic about how she got to the phone. Well, it was upstairs, but I had some sewing in my lap, and so I went to go up there, but first I had to put it away, and then on my way up the stairs, it's like Lord of the Rings without goblins,
I
Why don't you guys all just take a tall sip of something?
Yeah.
Done.
All right.
I'm done.
All right, we're recording, guys.
Oh, it's okay. No pressure. I got this, guys. I totally prepared. Let me find it.
All right. We're good?
Yeah.
All right, take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello, beautiful people. How are you?
You're talking to me or Justin?
I'm talking to the beautiful people, and you're
Oh.
not among them. And I was waiting for them to respond. Now I'll never get to know how they're doing, Andrew.
Sorry about that. Well, I think he's beautiful, Mr. Justin Robert Young.
Oh, hello, friends. It's me, Justin Robert Young.
So there, gentlemen. Interesting news out of Blue Origin. That's Jeff Bezos' space company. You ready for this? You ready for this?
No, I am. Let me guess. Rockets landing vertically.
Yawn.
Yeah, it's yes.
Yeah, let me
Yes.
guess. The news is another rocket trying to land standing up blows up, right? We've heard
No.
that story before.
They nailed it. Third Blue Origin launch and land is according to Bezos. Perfect. So the New Shepard, it went to a height of 339,000 feet. For those of you wondering, that's almost 340,000 feet. It's a success in the sense that this is, I think, pretty much the same hardware they launched before. And they did some microgravity experiments, which basically means, listen, anytime you're in an elevator that moves, very quickly downwards, you're kind of doing a microgravity experiment. But still, that is an impressive achievement. It shows that they're serious, that they did their first launch, I think in October, November-ish or something like that. And now that they've repeated this for a third time, very, very exciting. He says that they're on track to put people up into this. Now, again, this is not orbital. This is going up above the Kármán line and going to space. So it's not reaching orbital velocities, but it still shows they have a viable company. They're making their own technology. They're making their own rocket boosters and stuff, and they're proceeding. So,
But now here's the thing: is that it's not. We don't need big advancements in rocketry to get past the Kármán line, to get into orbit. We already know that. Where we need the most experience and where we want the most players is figuring out how to take giant, 4-story tall rockets and having them land vertically on the ground. So in that regard, I would imagine, yes, on the one hand, everything that Blue Origin seems to be built for seems to be a marketing stunt for tourists to go up, experience a little bit of space, and land cheaply and safely. But on the other hand, I think there's incredibly valuable hands-on experience happening.
Oh yeah. I think this is genuine engineering. I think they're really putting in the effort. And I've been critical of, a goal of putting that much capital into tourism initially, but that's their choice, and they're building hardware that's going to have other applications for it, and they have a better idea what they're doing than I do. And I am absolutely commending what they've done here in their progress and what they're making.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess what I'm getting at is we've talked before about how, not only are we getting smarter and more educated and science is advancing, but it's all happening
Not
faster.
three of us, but yes, everybody else.
But
watching others do it, and quite well.
But it's not only are we getting smarter, but the rate at which we're getting smarter is faster than ever. And we've talked about how much of that appears to be due to iteration, due to just how many at-bats we're getting. We talked, I think I was telling you when I was reading the biography of Benjamin Franklin, that there's this whole section where, like, his brother wasted 10 years of his life, on an expedition to go out to the Galapagos, take a bunch of samples, come back, and his boat sank. And all of that science and engineer and valuable intel was lost. Like the fact that we have so many players trying to figure out how to reliably land. How tall is this rocket? I said 4 stories. I was talking out of my butt. I think it's more than that, right? It's a good 80 feet or so.
The Blue Origin rocket.
Yeah.
It's tall. I don't know. I don't have those figures. I'm sorry, Brian. I don't know. Okay.
Phil for a second, and
yeah, no, that's fine. But basically, my point is, and we've talked about this before. It's like there was a time that if you wanted to, get a sample of something from China, you had to, commission a boat and pay bribes and take your body over there and convince, 12 people to let you do your research, of which only 3 would actually let you do it. And of those, 2 of the samples would be bad and so on. Nowadays, you can say like, hey, what is the weather exactly right this moment on the other side of the planet? And you'll be mad, justifiably mad, if you don't get an answer within, 20 milliseconds or something.
Well, Brian, I'm on the Wikipedia page and I have no idea.
Okay.
But it's tall.
All right.
It's they're building rocket engines for reusability, doing over and over again. In between them, SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and then you have like Sierra Nevada, which got their NASA funding to develop a crew capsule. So it's absolutely an exciting thing, and we're believers on the show, as you pointed out. Have multiple bets. Spread your bets, because you don't know which one will pan out, or you don't know how. Maybe there's part of an answer doing it one way, but you need that to finish out the other way you do it. And when we get into these ideas like, let's make Manhattan Project ideas, traditionally are not good ideas. They're the industry and big projects and big science is littered with these Manhattan Project ideas of, let's throw everything at this. And that was a project, by the way, they had a roadmap way before the government got into it. We get into these things where you bet everything on one thing, and then it doesn't work out, and then you set everything back for 20 years. We're here. Virgin Galactic had a frustrating setback with the loss of their Spaceship Two craft, but the determination there was to keep going. And we were skeptical I was skeptical that they would, that company would still exist, but they moved straight on ahead and are advancing forward. So.
Yeah, I think the what's really exciting about this is obviously that they're landing these things, and there is, now. I mean, I was joking before about like, oh, yawn, another awesome, perfect landing, but there is now just a totally different aura around these kinds of experiments, and Blue Origin, which you can certainly say is taking a different approach to how they want to show this stuff off, considering that they have very well manicured multimedia galleries for the press after these things land and not before they start, like SpaceX is doing it, is going a very long way to showing that, hey, look, this is viable technology that is safe, and that is more, although cutting edge, is not just a waiting death trap.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, speaking of waiting death traps.
Oh, yeah.
This show.
Oh, God.
Could be a waiting death trap.
I mean,
without your funding or your support.
It could be the death of our free time as we spend more of it trying to entertain you guys talking about news of the weird. We're 3 guys who don't necessarily believe in Sasquatch, but we know he's awesome. And we want to keep on talking about him, talking about news of the paranormal, of the super, science fiction-y stuff that's just around the corner.
I think we need to redo our artwork here because that does not blow up well.
Let me see. Wait, what are you talking about?
I'm looking at our Patreon page.
Yeah, some of those
Ah.
assets are a little older. Maybe we'll clean some of that out.
Yeah. My bookcase is in a totally different position now. But yeah, I think maybe that. But yeah, we appreciate your support. Everybody who's helped us out, it's very, very welcome. It makes it possible for us to sit down here and do this every week when we have all these other pressing demands, like stuff.
Like stuff. Yeah,
I
we
was,
got a
I
lot
was
of
waiting
stuff.
to hear where that was going to pay off.
Well, we're not gonna lie to you. We'd be doing this anyways. But it might be on phone calls as we're driving back and forth talking about strange stuff, and we're gonna
You
talk
don't
about
know? Stop making demands and start going to the Patreon.
Yeah. Your support is how we keep going forward.
Get out
And
of my dreams and into my Patreon.
yes. The big news, as far as I'm concerned, and why not what I say,
Sure.
is whatever,
Okay,
jerk.
listen, can I just say this? All right. I'm just going to go ahead and pull back the curtain because this reminds me of something. I've been listening to a lot of these movie podcasts. They all review Batman versus Superman, and a lot of them have a lot of comic book fan viewers and listeners. And I heard this on 4 of them that I can think of offhand, and all of them did one very weird thing when talking about Batman versus Superman. They listed all the things they liked. They made a point to say, "Let's talk about everything we liked, and then we will talk about the things that we are critical about," because they wanted to assuage fans of those properties that they were not being unduly harsh. What I feel like is about to happen is the reverse of that. We started off this show with I would say, perfunctory discussion of Blue Origin because we don't want to be unduly accused of being too excited about another topic for which we talk about all the time. So I can only imagine that we are about to talk about the explosive release of the Tesla Model 3.
You are absolutely correct, but I do want to reiterate that I am very sincere with the talk about Blue Origin. I think the fact that they've been doing this turnaround and keeping it forward is good, and I'm still like, I think space tourism, putting rich people into not even orbit in space, is like, really, guys? But I do think they're sincere about their long-term goals. And Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos really wants to put people, wants humanity to go out into the stars, and this is his roadmap to do it. And he created Amazon, and I didn't. So I disagree with him, but my money's on him.
I mean, and keep in mind.
To be fair, we're going to now talk about another company that catered to the wealthy,
to the super rich, it
worked out very well for them.
Yeah, that's right. The original Tesla Roadster was highly inefficient. It was extraordinarily expensive, but you got essentially the super wealthy who wanted to show off how wealthy they were driving around an electric vehicle, subsidized the research, the technology, and the stuff that has brought us to this moment where I love the fact that I know both of you guys well enough that this week Andrew can call me. I can pick up the phone, and the first words out of his mouth are, "So did you put in a reservation yet?" And I can know exactly what he's talking about. Not that we're about to go see a movie or whatever, but that clearly he's talking about the hype machine of the Model 3. Walk me through your experience, Andrew, because I don't know that any of us are quite as huge an enthusiast for the work of Elon Musk as you are.
So you have to understand that, like, my fascination, and again, I had a conversation with Justin about some of my frustration with the journalism going into this, going like, there are a lot of these things that should be critical and be addressed about, but they don't dig into it enough to know that these are the things to be asking questions about, which drives me crazy. Because, like, this Elon Musk is a complicated guy who has done some amazing things and is certainly not above criticism in many ways, but obviously I'm a fanboy of much of what he's done. So it started for me way back when I read probably the first Wired article talking about when he wanted to build the Tesla. And I'd been following electric cars, since I was a kid, fascinated in this. And his approach was, at that time, people were trying to make these really crappy, little boxy electric cars that were nothing more than superpowered, the overpowered golf carts. And he was like, No, I think we're going to go into the high end first because you can make really fast electric cars, and I think if we do that, we'll have exactly what he said. And before this was the first Roadster came out, before the test Roadster came out, I'm like, this makes sense. This guy makes a lot of sense. He's an engineer who understands economics, and sometimes you get great engineers or you get great business people, but they don't meet. And I said, this is a guy that understood that, and we saw that with SpaceX. And now that we've seen here where he talked about, well, first we're going to build this. And early on, he said, yeah, eventually we're going to have a consumer model. And that was his goal. His value is he is certainly a guy who's accumulated wealth, but his real purpose is to change the world. And not to say that that's more noble or less noble than somebody wants to make money, because maybe the way he wants to change it, we don't all want to see it change that way. But the point is, ever since he first laid out his roadmap of how he wanted to do that, I said, this makes sense. I bought Tesla the day that it IPO'd. Not a lot of stock, but I bought Tesla stock when that happened. I bought Solar City when that came available because I said, oh, these things make sense. So anyhow, he laid out this roadmap that first they would build the Roadster, as Brian pointed out, where it was going to be this high-end car that would then launch the company. And then after they developed that, they would then create the Model S, which would be a luxury sedan, which would be comparable to other cars in that class, but be electric. And the Model S has then become heralded as one of the best cars ever, or best car of the year. It's the Consumer Reports, their love-hate relationship sometimes praises it, and then they change their mind. But anyhow, by and large, all the Tesla owners I know absolutely love them. And where I live in LA, I see them everywhere. The Tesla, the Model S, is one of these cars that's selling very, very well. And then based on the success of that and the technology, they decided, we're going to go ahead with our Model 3 program, the end game. The end game here for Tesla, the end game for SpaceX is people on Mars. The end game for Tesla was the Model 3 car, which was going to be a mass-produced car, electric car for for everybody. Not unlike the Model T was for Henry Ford. Henry Ford looked at cars that were much more expensive at that point and said, you know what? If we can figure out manufacturing, we can make a car that the average consumer could purchase. And we saw the unveiling. On Thursday night, Elon Musk unveiled, we had no idea what this would look like, unveiled the Model 3 and gave us just preliminary details. We know very, very little about this car other than some of the basic features: 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, 215-mile range, and they showed us what it looked like, which was critical. But there was a lot of speculation going into this by pundits of like, well, how many are they going to pre-sell? This is a car that doesn't ship until next year, late next year, and maybe on that. But, how many cars could they pre-sell where you had to put down $1,000 in order to pre-order one? And a Barclay financial analyst said that he predicted maybe 150,000 to 300,000 orders, or 275,000 orders by late June. That's how many orders he thought they would get. Tesla beat that in 48 hours. In 48 hours by the end of
wrap your mind around that. 200,000 pre-orders in the first 48 hours equals $200 million of
276,000 by last night.
$276 million just showed up in their coffers. Now, on the flip side, though, and there's plenty to be super, super excited about, but there was, and I would love to have somebody smarter than me verify this, but somebody was saying that that for them to fulfill this order, they will need to deliver half of the lithium on the planet for that many lithium-ion batteries, which I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Did you watch the presentation he did?
No.
So a big part of what they've been doing, they've been building the Gigafactory out in Nevada. The Gigafactory by square footage is the largest building in the world. Largest building in the world. They're building in Nevada, not by volume. That's the Boeing factory, as you pointed out. A humongous factory purely for producing lithium ion cells. The reason is in order for them to they own a factory in Fremont for a car. They bought the old Toyota plant there, and that can produce 500,000 cars a year. The most expensive component of an electric car is the batteries. And people are like, why don't we have electric cars? Asking it in the 90s or other periods of time. They're expensive. When the Nissan Leaf came out, the battery pack was $30,000. That's wow. That's a $30,000 gas tank.
I saw a movie that a cabal of big oil killed it.
Dude, yeah, that's right. I saw Ed Begley Jr. crying, and I saw the funeral, and so I know that Ford, it was big oil.
Yeah.
Who killed the electric car? Yeah, not the fact that the technology wasn't ready and GM was losing lots of money on it and really did it just to meet a federal mandate. No. By the way, though, but in OPEC's defense, OPEC has announced they think the total number of electric cars sold per year will be like 1 million by 2050. They might be optimistic for their intents about that. So what's interesting, last year, 2016, you know the total number of electric vehicles was sold in the United States?
Well, I'm sorry. There was a bit of cross chatter there.
No. I'm sorry, Andrew. Restate what you were saying.
Last year, do you know the total number of electric vehicles sold in the United States was?
50,000.
About 116,000.
Wow.
So in 24 hours, Tesla sold out, doubled that.
Now, all right. So real quick note. And what I was gonna say before, if you were to say that OPEC was trying to squash electric cars, and I do not believe this, but if one were to take a certain look at the facts, you could say, well, the fact that we are in gigantic or a historic period of low oil prices and therefore lower gas prices might be something that you would look at. I think there are many more reasons for why gas is so low now than, like, let's say, the idea of oncoming electric cars. But there is a very serious question. I think is one of the questions that I know, Andrew, people who are serious about looking at what kind of story this is need to think about is how, I mean, of those, let's say, to say the round number, it gets to 300,000. How many of those 300,000 people that put down $1,000 are going to take their $1,000 back, and how many are going to spend the $35,000 to $42,000 to get this Model 3?
To me, I don't. Here's the thing: is yes, there are going to be people who at some point are going to ask for it back. The more important question is how many more people are going to want to order it. And I think that, Musk is doing these stage rollouts. I just put out a thing on Twitter because, if you look at this thing, it's a very Spartan interior. There's one 15-inch display right in the center console, and people are like, I need gauges and I need this. And Elon, in his cryptic fashion, said something effective like, we have more to reveal. Heads-up display. I mean, heads-up display. You're going to have that. Another factor that comes into play that many people who have been ordering haven't even thought about, many people have heard about this, and I've had a lot of people like, well, the Chevy Bolt could be great. Chevy Bolt could be a great car, but you know what it doesn't have built into it? This has the hardware built in? Autopilot. Brian had made some very optimistic projections about mass market electric cars that I was sort of like, I don't know, Bri. Well, we've got 278,000 pre-orders for a car that's going to have autopilot, self-driving capabilities baked in.
And keep in mind, if I'm remembering the prediction I made was, I think I said, what was it? In just 5 years, it'll feel weird to. I forget the exact nature, but basically, I was saying 5 years from now, it'll be obvious that if you can afford it, you'll get the car that could drive itself. And already the fact that we already have pre-sales on this. Kind of indicates to me that maybe that wasn't so outrageous.
No, I think to your credit, and much to my frustration, I have to mention it. I think that I've had some people who love the Bolt are like, Bolt's first. Yeah, Bolt's going to be first to market by a year. I can't deny that, and I think that GM looks like people have built a pretty neat car there, but I look at the Tesla Model 3 and I see a sexy self-driving robot that happens to look kind of like a car.
So yeah, what things do we know, and what specifically do we not know? Not that they're playing coy, but just that obviously this is like basically them saying, oh wow, what's funny is just now I watched this video of them driving cars in, and I realized that there's no pollution, no carbon monoxide, no anything happening because they're electric vehicles. By
the way, though, also just compare, just run side by side like what just happened to the beginning of Iron Man 2. Like 4 dancers and a descending Tony Stark away.
Yeah. No, it's pretty much dead on.
Welcome to Musk Expo.
So at this point, things that are hinted at. First of all, nobody's seen it. Nobody's gotten hands on. We've basically seen this is a pre-sales event.
Well, people have ridden around in them. They did that.
Sure. but not to the extent that we're seeing any real reviews or whatever.
Correct.
Basically, this is the first time that we've seen them turn to the public and say, hey, our reputation. If you believe, then get in line. And turns out about a third of a million people believe.
Yeah, and so here's what they've said. They said that autopilot's built in. It won't, but you'll have to pay for an upgrade to full autopilot, but it'll have all the safety autopilot features, collision avoidance, and all that will be, standard, right? Right now at the Tesla, to enable autopilot, you pay for a software upgrade of about $3,000, and then the Model S has that. So we'll expect probably something comparable for that. So the $35,000 base price, you're going to add in $3,000 for that, and there's probably some other options like the supercharging capability, it probably the base model. Musk says he thinks the average selling price is going to be about $42,000, which means that probably to get the cool options, the basic cool options, it'll take you to there. So that's what we know. We know very, very little else about it. We don't know the size of the battery pack. We don't know what the prices of upgrades are. And the reason is they don't know. They're still trying to figure this thing out. And Musk on his Twitter feed was really caught off guard. They were expecting maybe a quarter to half of the pre-orders they had, and probably not as quickly as amount of time. They have a factory that can produce 500,000 cars a year when it's fully ramped up, but that factory isn't ramped up to do 500,000 cars a year. He said on Twitter, we're going to have to rethink, the accelerating the ramp. Quote, here's the thing Bryce pulled up. We'll give an update tonight for the 3-day total, which ended up being 276,000. Then one on Wednesday for the full week. He says all efforts focused on accelerating the ramp, meaning they've had such a huge response to this car. And yeah, they can't touch the money they have. They're holding for deposits, but they can go borrow. They don't even have to borrow. They borrow against the, they're going to be fine as far as finding financing and resources to continue moving forward, because to have that kind of excitement, enthusiasm for it, it's unprecedented.
I mean, also, geez, what a time to be alive. Elon Musk definitely going to think about here. Bryce, can you bring that back up there? Elon Musk definitely going to need to rethink production planning. ... Like, that's we're so used to it and used to candor on Twitter, but like, that's like, what pressure. Right? Like what problems that need to be solved, and beyond all the other stories about this, something that's kind of getting buried is like, this is the new face of the American car company, right? Of American manufacturing of automobiles, for which now the idea that what Tesla is offering is like, hey, look, here is which I love their term, a less high priced, not cheaper, right? Not more affordable, less high priced version of what is considered to be one of the best cars you could possibly buy, with, that will be competitive, as Tesla will make the claim, against something that is, $15,000, $16,000 once you factor in everything else that goes into what it takes to fuel that kind of car. That you are certainly going to be paying a premium, and you're going to be paying it all up front. But this is the experience we can offer you, which is just insane. It's just amazing.
Man,
so,
and it's...
Oh, I was going to ask, just to give equal time here, if we were to speculate wildly about things that might go wrong with this, because oftentimes when something explodes and I guess, explodes in popularity, but oftentimes you have literal explosions. It's when sometimes growth happens so quickly that it is unmanageable, and people get ahead of themselves. And obviously the tragedy regarding, Spaceship One, there's been no shortage of disasters in the oil business, as there's been booms and then corners have been cut and all of a sudden there's fires and stuff. Lithium is one of the most reactive substances on the periodic table. It bursts into flame the moment it encounters oxygen. How disastrous would it be to have and I guess it's funny because on the one hand, Elon Musk is synonymous with public disasters in that we've watched, our favorite thing is to gather around and watch his latest rocket crash. And yet on the flip side, everything we've seen from the Tesla has been so measured and precise, and we already have these videos of the autopilot saving lives and so on. I don't know. Like, is there any big pitfalls they need to watch out for in the next couple of years?
There are lots of them. The problem with a car or any complex device is, one, you have a supply chain problem. Okay, so that's one of the things that happened with the Model X, right? So they have this beautiful, beautiful, their SUV with these falcon wing doors, as they call them. And apparently one of the holdups there was they had a problem with an issue with somebody supplying parts for those doors. And, they can't deliver these things. They're not able, and that's the official story. Who knows what, maybe there's some other issue there. There's trying to solve these production issues. You could have a line of robots that are designed to make something, and two of them that do something specifically. Then one of those things breaks down, and these things are one of a kind. There are a lot of supply issues. Remember what happened with Apple? And they were supposed to come out with a new kind of glass covering for the iPhone. There was like a new quartz glass or some special type of glass material. And the manufacturer agreed to do it, went like bankrupt. And Apple had made a large deal for them. It had to go in and basically, the sapphire glass, production. They had to go in and basically buy their manufacturing lines and whatever. And Apple is such a wealthy company that Apple can do that, where Musk is a guy that, does pre-orders and stuff on these things. And, he can go raise funding, but he doesn't have, $100 billion, $200 billion in cash sitting in a bank account that they can just, send in Tim Cook to go write a check. He can find the money, but it's a different challenge for them. So that.
Yeah, and PR wise, something that has dogged Tesla has been delivery. People have pre-ordered it, got very, very excited, and this is where they can very much be a victim of their own hype, is people getting very, very excited and then not getting what they want. As all three of us can attest to, in retail, very often the people that spend the least amount of money relatively to the rest of your product line oftentimes complain the most. This can be a PR headache. Everybody anecdotally that I've talked to that has put down money on this all says, yeah, it'll be out next year, ... or, the year after that, or late the year after that. There's almost an expectation that this is going to be late, but how late? If there's any news in the meantime of cars that get delivered that, let's say for whatever reason, don't live up to the hype or have problems with it, there's a lot of oxygen in the air to make a small fire a big fire, not only because Tesla's a company that obviously people are only going to pay more attention to, but because you have expectations and money on the line. And that means there is entitlement, and that means that the hot takes will only get hotter.
On his Twitter feed, he was talking about how people with geographically they were going to roll out on the West Coast first and the East Coast. And he was getting complaints from people like, well, that doesn't seem fair. I waited in line and blah, blah, blah. And he was blunt. He's like, listen, early models, you put them out near the factory in case you have to make changes and fix things. And people are like, well, what problems are you anticipating? And it's like, well, we don't know, And it's a very honest answer that doesn't make people happy to hear that. Yeah, first gen, we're going to have to be pulling a lot of these back into the factory, and we'd rather do them near where they're manufactured than try to deal with this overseas and other places. And early people who went and put their deposits down first don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. And we're going to get the inevitable, story of frustrated with delays. I went and bought a Bolt. It's going to be, we can write the handbook for all the stories that are going to come out of it. And there's going to be elements of truth to them, but there's also going to be elements of trying to create a controversy. And there have been people who in the stock market who've been betting against Tesla from the get-go. And the fact that they got this many pre-orders, I don't even think we'll see what happens Monday and Tuesday on Wall Street. And not to say necessarily how it immediately reflects in the Tesla stock price, but do people really appreciate what that means? The early success of the iPhone was really lost on analysts because they're fanboys waiting in line to go buy Apple, buy an iPhone. It's like, yeah, but where did these Apple fanboys come from? Because in the 1990s, they weren't buying Apple computers. They're just they kept growing and growing and growing. And there was this dismissive attitude like, well, all these Tesla fanboys or Tesla fangirls. And it's like, yeah, but they're multiplying really, really quickly.
Yeah, no, and that's actually a really good thing to point to, because I definitely am in the camp. Like, I still have never owned, outside of my Apple IIe was the last Apple computer that I've owned. So even after Steve Jobs came back, even after we saw the revolution, as more and more of the artsy types, the graphic designer and stuff and video editors were going to Apple devices, I still was not interested. And ultimately, it just took the right Apple product on the doorstep of things I did care about in the mobile space, everything they were offering. And I have never owned not an iPhone. All of my phone devices have all been iPhones. I've never owned an Android device. I take that back, or not that I used it as a phone anyway. But my point is, it could be that the Model 3 is just that version of the iPhone, where it's like, hey, everything you've heard up until now has been crazy talk for other people who want to spend more than $60,000 on a car. Finally, we're close between, government, tax benefits or whatever, or financing options and money saving against gas, although that's probably not the most compelling argument right now. If finally the Model 3 is the iPhone for you.
Yeah, the tax credits.
Remember this famous quote, which was from Steve Ballmer, but certainly echoed more than him. $500 fully subsidized with a plan. That's the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. This is him talking about the $99 Motorola Q Windows phone at the time. It'll do music, it'll do internet, it'll do email, it'll do instant messaging. I look at that and say, I like our strategy. Among the most famous kind of words in tech history. But this was, now we laugh at it, but this was not a crazy a quote when he said it. There was certainly a lot of cynicism about the iPhone.
My favorite quote was the CEO of Palm regarding the iPhone. They asked about what do you think of the iPhone. He says, we've learned a lot and struggled for years here figuring out how to make a decent product. He said, PC guys are not going to just figure this out. They're just not going to walk in. And that's the thing is that it was ready. The phone industry is ready for a transition because people who build conventional phone hardware were not ready to take it into the next generation of where phones really were computers that happen to be capable of talking on the phone. There's an argument to be made. The next generation of cars are largely robotic electric vehicles that look like cars, but they come from a different environment. Tesla is a company. Tesla builds these features into them. They don't tell people they exist. Then later on, they announce that, oh yeah, every car made for the last 6 months has had autopilot, and we're now going to make this enabled. They're big into the idea of treating cars like electronic devices that you can then add features to it after the fact. A different mind for production, and it's been rough. It's been rough for that, but that's a problem. Like GM just acquired like this year a company that was making self-driving technology that was like the idea of being aftermarket additions because GM realized they were way behind in self-driving functionality. And BMW had some cool tech and some other places do, but when it comes to overall full-on robotic driving, the only cars that we've seen on the road that have these features in any big way, production vehicles are, the things that Google's producing with their partners and, the Teslas. And that's the big leap that by the time these, the Bolt ships this year, theoretically the Model 3 ships next year, start shipping next year, we're seeing a mass market self-driving vehicle on the road.
Well, and that's what we are, it's certainly what we're looking at. We're looking at a huge possibility, and one thing that no matter what happens from the Model 3 that we can learn from what is happening from the pre-sales is that reputation matters, prompts matters, vision matters, and they matter on a level that is beyond consumer electronics. That they matter. Now you watch that, and you realize, oh, this is why. 2 years ago, Apple started working really, really hard on a car division. Because this is something that now, having seen what that number is, you're like, oh, okay. So people will just lay out $1,000 for the promise of a revolutionary driving machine. That's crazy. That's makes all the sense in the world now.
And it gets into, and we're in a weird world where Apple may be the dark horse like Google was with Android to the iPhone, where Apple's, looming in the wings with their Project Titan. They've committed billions of dollars to developing their own car, and Tesla may come out there, then Apple may try to steal their thunder with like, hey, look what we got.
So, one of the things that keeps popping into my mind is, okay, self-driving, autopilot features for safety built in and so on. I'm like, my oldest daughter just turned 12. It's like we got 4 years, and then maybe she'll never really have to learn to drive, or let me put it this way: she'll learn how to drive, but she won't be subject to the same level of rolling the dice of safety that I was when I was a kid. But then it occurred to me that it's like, oh, well, that's an awfully expensive solution, a $42,000 Tesla 3. And I was like, I wonder how many Uber rides I could buy her in that same amount of time. And all of a sudden, for the first time, keep in mind, I live in Texas. And in Texas, if you don't have your own car, you're not getting anywhere. This Uber Lyft revolution is finally reached out to West Austin in the middle of nowhere where it's cheap enough to go. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you talking about an Uber with the driver driving her? Because then you're trusting her fate to.
Well, first of all, I will automatically trust anyone with 20 years of driving experience whose job is to pay full attention to the road, but over a 16-year-old girl driving, and that's any 16-year-old girl. That's any situation. So yes, that alone,
including Joan of Arc,
that's not just a my daughter thing. But beyond that, I certainly would pick that today. 4 years from now, when the odds are the entire fleet of brand X, driving opportunity has the enhancements of all this, autopilot technology. Yeah, then that too.
We'll see what the rollout's going to be, by then. Because 4 years, Uber basically hired half of Carnegie Mellon's, robot division to go work on the Uber self-driving project. And I think the rest went to go work for Google. And Google and Uber are, I've heard behind the scenes, are strategically working together on stuff. And Uber's goal has been clear that they want to build a fleet to do that. And the problem we've seen is we can't even roll out Uber in cities without taxi cab drivers and other people getting upset. And when we start putting autonomous vehicles out there and fully putting people out of work, it's going to be a PR nightmare, and it's the future. It's absolutely the future.
I don't know how much of a nightmare it's going to be, because even now, if you ask most people on the street, their sympathies are not with the taxi cab drivers, right? And when I talk to people driving Ubers, I say, hey, so is this a forever thing? And again, everybody working at Uber that I've encountered has this gig economy mentality where they're like, no, I do this, on the side. But it's like, yeah, someday these will all drive themselves. And
I agree, but it's we're seeing, we live in when the world now, as it always has been, is that there are where there's money that can be lost, there's people willing to defend those things. And we've seen, violent stuff towards Uber cars and Uber drivers. When I talk to Uber drivers at the airport, they tell me, and Lyft drivers, they tell me about how the guys who are doing the other car services will try to tailgate them, act antagonistically to them, flip them off, and treat them this way because they're fearing this. And we've seen protests in New York from Uber drivers frustrated at the change of the loss of money of every time the rates change, and protest that. And I think that, and again, this is the path towards the future, but it is inevitable. But there is going to be a large there's going to be perhaps a over-exaggerated resistance, but there is going to be a resistance, and there's going to be people who are, as we were in the middle of a campaign season, and one of the biggest rallying cries is not letting our jobs go overseas, even though these are jobs that are leaving the planet. I agree that this is the way we need to go, but it's.
Yeah, man.
So yes. I mean, I think that where, like, this conversation always kind of frustrates me a little bit, just because we're to take a side on where public opinion will be when this hits critical mass. I think always has an inherent element of us filling in with our own color, where both of those things will be both in time and in passion. But I think no matter what, yeah, I mean, there's going to be there will be a backlash to it, but as we have always seen, the world tends to move based on convenience and price, and where that is, the future lies.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that the leap to self-driving fleets, and like we had the problem we had in California where they went to go, you would think California would be very progressive when it came to this stuff, but they passed a law saying that not only did you have to have a driver's license to be in a self-driving car, you had to have a special license to let that car do that. And they added an extra hurdle there because we've seen how, one, we talk about who's resisting this. One is initially taxi industries, but larger is the insurance industry, because the insurance industry stands to lose quite a bit when you have a fleet mentality and you don't ride sharing mentality, because you don't need to have your own car insurance policy, and they will lobby and make their own case, and we've seen examples of that. So I think in a practical world, then in a logical world, yeah, we'd have these things very quickly.
But I mean, I think, all right, so let's then put our heads together instead of getting into a scuffle on what everybody will feel. Are there places where this will make more sense and find least resistance? Like, is overhaul or a long haul trucking or something?
Well, unfortunately, I think that's the one that is last to accept. I think that I think for all the 16-year-old daughters, you'll have a bunch of parents who are thankful for increased safety. But what is it, like 11 million people make their money driving stuff long haul? Is like, that is where you're going to see a definite big pushback.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So then where? Where's the soft spot on the membrane then?
I think that we're going to start by, it won't be a demographic set of battle lines. I think it'll be a geographic set of battle lines. I think what they're going to say is highways. Hey, man, we're not talking about driving themselves everywhere, just on the highway. That's why we have this one lane, those diamond lanes. Right next to it is the high capacity, high vehicle, robotic only lane. And as a result, we'll get twice the throughput. There'll be less traffic. You'll have less traffic going to and fro. And it'll only be on that lane.
But you would agree that would probably come after something that doesn't require them to paint over another lane, right? Like, there would be something there before that would get people excited about self-driving cars before government representatives said, yeah, we're going to make this change to everybody's highway.
No. Again, you don't have to paint over lines. You could just say this lane is now for robotic cars only, or be warned, this is the only. More to the point, it would be like, this is the only lane you're allowed to be fully autonomous and do that stuff.
I mean,
just don't worry, all you normal people.
Like, they just in Florida, they've roped off some lanes and had that be a variable toll thing, which is kind of proven to show that it does reduce traffic, and that has met with tremendous resistance, right? Like, the politicians that put that in have become very, very unpopular.
And those things take like 8 to 10 years from the point somebody suggesting to the point that at which the city or the state or the federal government actually makes those things happen.
Well, again, I think you guys are picturing things the reverse of what I'm actually pitching. What you guys are describing, yes, you're talking about taking an established 3 free lanes and make one of them a variable toll lane in the interest of reducing overall stuff. That's not what I'm saying they're going to do. What I'm going to say they're going to do is say, keep those robot cars off my roads. And then what they're going to come up with is like, okay, robot cars, we're going to keep them off your roads by sticking them in this robot ghetto off to the side. And then secretly, of course, the robot ghetto is the place to be, and everyone will eventually realize that the more robot ghetto lanes there are, the faster everyone goes.
I just have a pessimistic view of how quickly something like that would happen in legislation.
Well, let me just so they would build another road, or they would paint over a line?
Basically, you got 3 lanes. If the question is like right now, you got you never know which of these cars are driven by people and which are robots. So it's like, we're going to segregate. We're going to put those wicked robots in their own lane. They're already on the road. Let's just confine them for their lane. Stay in your own lane, robots.
So they would be redistributing where the lines are.
Correct. And then they're like, hey, notice how this lane's always smooth and never has any accidents. Why don't we let that lane go faster? Oh, hey, notice how the awesome lane to be in is the robot ghetto? Why don't we make that 2 lanes? And then all of a sudden, that's
No,
how it's
I
going to
see.
go.
I definitely see where you're coming from. I guess I think that for there to be social proof one way or another of like, I can't trust these cars or I think these cars are awesome, there would have to be some element of societal, if niche, acceptance of self-driving cars to then bring up the idea that, okay, well, we need to find a different lane for them. Like, even people are saying like pizza delivery or something like that. Like, and I'm not saying that that's it, but like just some element of society where these become a thing.
I can see that in contained. I mean, the highways are a great way for us people who have self-driving cars to be able to say like, hey, if you're self-drive, you can use the HOV lane. You don't have to repaint anything and say that allows. I could see in places like where and this would probably piss off the taxi industry, but in places like if I want to leave out of LAX airport, I got to go park in a long-term lot. I got to go hop on a bus that takes forever, then go up to the terminal. If LAX made an agreement or some deal with a self-driving robot fleet to say, oh, we can take you from these lots which are right around the perimeter of the airport up to the airport and back, and then maybe to the hotels too, and then expand out there from there. I think if you can get over the resistance of the taxi companies to perceive they're losing it, I could see that. I could see in cities where bus service is not, the buses were, they all like, oh, the car companies killed off trolleys and stuff. No, buses were a much better way to add lines and control throughput. There was actually a very good reason why we went to buses for stuff, but buses can still be expensive, and buses, if they don't have enough people in there, they're not worthwhile. But if you start having self-driving vans and stuff that are in certain municipalities just going up one street and back down one street, I could see that becomes another way in which we start using these, where it's the acceptance comes in these little places here where it's specific routes. So somebody says nobody in discussion is thinking outside the United States. There's probably a very good reason for that.
Wait, what does that mean?
Shots fired.
Mainly because we're not qualified to have the foggiest idea of what's going to happen outside the United States.
Yeah. Well, the problem with the traffic patterns around London, as I see them, there's globally it's going to be other issues.
I really like your so picture this. I really like your idea of the toehold of that, because the problem is not whether or not we want robot assisted driving. We obviously, I think there will be a lot of people, once they get on the highway, they know it's 3 hours and they know they're supposed to be watching the road. They're definitely playing Angry Birds the entire time. And that'll, give it 5 years of that being the socially, increasingly known thing everybody does. And it'll be really weird because it'll be harder to shout about avoid distracted driving when there's literally nothing for you to do during those periods. But the idea of fully autonomous driving, I love the idea of just saying, hey, let's get through. Imagine cutting 30 minutes off of your trip to the airport because you don't have to park. You just drive up to the airport, you hop out, and this is one of those very few protected green zones, and it's only from the airport into the spot and then back to pick you up. And then that's a toehold. I think everyone can agree that's in a contained environment. Maybe it's all private owned land or not on the general highway or whatever, but it's one of the few places that everyone sees the experiment go, and 5 years later it's like, well, maybe we expand the green zone and now you can have it pick up your kid from school.
Yeah, think about when you do in conventions and stuff like, Comic-Con and, Comdex and back when there was that, when you get like your big, when they bring it back, there's like a lot of these big conventions and stuff where they overwhelm the city's existing transportation system. And then you could start thinking about like, when they do big conventions or concerts and stuff, and they have like when we do a show at the LA Bowl here in the Hollywood Bowl rather, there's a fleet of buses to take people to and from remote parking lots, but you could see the idea of a mobile fleet that could do that. So there are, there's a lot of these edge cases where there's a business case for a company that owns a fleet to make these things available.
I guess, yeah, and that's what I was trying to spur, was just like where's that thing that pops first? Because I think that's something where like even staunch safety or whatever you might consider your concern against self-driving cars would be like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. If let's say Disney World, they
Right.
they want an easier way that you can upgrade your experience and go from one thing to another by way of a self-driving car, and they own all the land and they're the ones like carving out everything that, like, yeah, sure, we're not going to make that illegal.
Well, and imagine like the moment you park at Disney, up pulls one of those Google steering wheelless cars, and then you hop out and it immediately reads the RFID chip, or better yet, has facial recognition technology, and says like, oh, using your season pass, are you? This is your guest, great, and they pull you right up, and
Magic
there's not
bands.
even a line to get anything.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of it. Tensor Guy says, however, in Asia they will embrace and there will only be self-driving cars. Not to disagree, but have you ever been to Asia and seen how they drive there, and the mopeds and the anarchy that is there? That's an even higher technological challenge than solving the game of Go.
Yeah.
Well,
Agreed.
yeah, it's funny. Denzer Guy also said, I think this is dead on accurate that, in much of the developing world, there will be no laws either for or against until there is some kind of problem, at which point they will probably overregulate.
Yeah, in Asia, like, the only way you get anywhere in some of those countries is you have to break the law to go through red lights and all this sort of stuff. So, not to, disparage an entire continent. But I've lived there, I've been there, I've seen how these things work. Yeah. I mean, but yes, eventually. So, hey, I just got an email, by the way, from a guy by the name of Jeff, who's got a little rocket
I got
company.
that too.
What's that?
I got that as well.
But it's like a mailing list. They sent it to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So
No.
you-
It was just
Virgin
me and
email.
you. We're tight with
You and me.
the
And
old
What's
Bezos.
weird, they put an unsubscribe
Wait,
there. So
did
if you
he
sign up
just
for-
now
wait,
push a
don't-
video?
Don't pause. If you sign up, you go to Blue Origin, you can sign up for the email list and get updates every time they do something like this, and then you can get an email from Jeff, who has a rocket company.
Your best buddy.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead now. Play. This is footage. We're gonna describe what we're seeing.
All right, so you have a very thick, girthy spaceship. It's so phallic. We're looking at drone footage of this
And
thing
it's
just taking
beautiful
off.
desert location.
Man, that would be a hell of a ride. I mean, if you are gonna blow a couple $100,000 on something, that seems pretty worthy.
So we're seeing the launch, the separation, and so it's 1 minute and 50 seconds. Altitude. Now, of course, the wonderful thing about using a fisheye lens is you see the curvature of the Earth, even though it's not really curved at that point.
Right. If you look too high, suddenly it becomes convex.
Yeah, exactly. That was frustrating me because somebody had this like,
Concave.
oh, these people think the Earth is flat. Look at these high altitude balloons. See how the Earth is curved? And it's like, no, that's the lens. That's not a good example to debunk a stupid theory. So let's watch this thing come back
Man,
down.
it comes down so fast. It's terrifying.
At half a mile up, it relights. So this thing drops like a rock and then relights and then lands.
Yeah.
Jim.
Oh my God! It looks like a missile coming in, and then just.
That's horrifying.
Uh,
And fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Well done.
Imagine being on board that. I mean, that's not the crew module. Being aboard that for the relanding.
Yeah, well, no. Yeah, you wouldn't be, right? Because that thing has to pull like an insane number of Gs. Because I assume the reason it does that is to conserve fuel, right? Use very little fuel for fall. Use gravity to get all the way back, and then just make sure the thing doesn't break by firing. Like it's got to be like 10 Gs, I would imagine.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Insane.
Hey, you want to do a real quick picks, and then we'll move into after things?
yeah, I'm going to do a shameless plug first, gentlemen.
Oh.
I, Andrew Main, that's me, guys, have a new book out, and it's only going to be 99 cents for just a few more days, and then it's going to go to its full price. The Cure for Writer's Block.
Now, have you ever experienced writer's block?
I would say that, yeah. I mean, I've had decisions where I don't know what to do, where I don't know what to do next. And so I do think, I've never had a problem where I couldn't create anything, but I've
Right.
had problems where I'm trying to figure out how to create in the area that I've chosen. And I wrote this because I'd been on panels where professional writers would say, "Oh, writer's block doesn't exist," and the question is asked a lot, and so that's not a helpful answer to people who are trying to figure out. And I think part of the problem is you become more prolific or you become more experienced at writing, you understand how to write no matter what and keep going. But how do you help, somebody who's starting out? So I broke down writer's block into 3 different categories. Writer's blank, which is when you're trying to come up with an idea and you have no idea where to begin and how to draw from what you know and what you're interested in and produce something that's going to be, could be a story. And then I get into writer's lock, when you have a great idea, but you can't figure out how to get started. You're like, I want to do this, but I don't know where to begin. And I give you examples. These are ways to start stories. This is a way to jump right into it and get things going. And then there's writer's knot, which is when you're in the middle of a book and it's not working, you're confused about where to go or how to end it or whatever. And so those are the 3 biggest points at which people have problems. And so I decided to address those. It's like an 80-page book. It's a quick read. It's 15,000 words. But I've put a lot of thought into it, and it's a lot of the advice I've been giving to people. And so brand new this week. You can get it right now for 99 cents. If you read it and you liked it, if you want to leave a review, that's great. My other book, How to Write a Novella in 24 Hours, has been doing great. It's been hovering around #1. And then the reviews for Station Break are fantastic. It's at like 105 reviews. It's 90% 5 stars. So I think you'll enjoy this. If you have any interest in writing or creating, check out The Cure for Writer's Block, available now on Amazon. Now, if you're on some other reading platform and you want a copy, just send me an email. I'll take care of you.
Yeah, right on,
Look
man.
at that. Hey, I got a pick.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be the same one as Andrew's, but we've certainly spent a significant amount of time this week talking about it. I'm going to go back to the well, like I did last week, and pick Documentary Now.
Oh, geez, so good.
I was unexpected, even after picking it last week as my pick for just based on the 2-part finale. How amazing!
And that was the weakest one.
I mean, of them, yeah, because it was just kind of like it's certainly a loving tribute to rock docs, right? But in its desire to kind of be like a rock doc, it is almost anticlimactic, as most rock docs are. The rest of them are just Sandy Passages or
Brilliant.
Sandy Passage is maybe my favorite television experience of the past 10 years. I was so blown away by it. I thought it was so well done, and it was effective on a level that I hesitate to even describe, for fear that people wouldn't get as much of it out of it as I did. I know that's super overselling it, but just great job by everyone.
For what I think is Bill Hader's best comedic performance ever alone. It's worth it for that. As he plays this woman who's trying to charm this documentary crew and, is very pathetic and sad, but still the way, if I were to teach a workshop on comedy, which I should never do, but if I were, and I were to select things that I think are great performances and how to understand conviction in character and why, it would be his character, because there's, moments where like he's this woman showing people stuff and, he does a little trip or a fall and it doesn't become this, wah, I fell. It's just that character would not acknowledge that she fell, it'd just be a little laugh and a little giggle and continue straight on. And that gets the much bigger laugh. It's just so much brilliance in there. I thought that Justin had watched all of them, and then so I started Sandy Passage, and so I'm like doing these, OMG, this is amazing, and then I realized that he'd started with the last one, which I think was good, but it had kind of like one joke that kind of got used over, and there was not. It ended pretty much where a regular rock doc would. It was not. It's worth watching, but the others are so much better.
Well, yeah, I mean, what is part of the element, which is almost a credit to Bill Hader and Fred Armisen. With the Blue Jean Committee one is, part of what you sort of just gloss over is the fact that they created, and it's a real album that you can like get, is, they created this 70s soft rock album by the Blue Jean Committee. And it's like, in the process of that documentary, when you have these like rock legends talking about how influential they were, they play these songs, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. I mean, I guess that makes sense to me. It sounds like the Eagles or something like that. But the rest of them, I mean, they're all effectively parodies of other famous documentaries. So Sandy Passage is a Grey Garden spoof,
written by Seth Meyers, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Canuck one is as well, but
I think he did.
The one that is basically a takeoff of Nanak of the North, but it's another documentary about the making.
About realizing
Nanak
that
of the North. Just is brilliant, just amazing, just so good on so many different levels, and both Fred Armisen and Bill Hader doing comedic, starkly comedic roles that are so well tailored to them, specifically, and yet are things that you haven't really seen them do before.
They brilliantly, they either send up documentaries, like as pointed out, Sandy Passage was a send up of Great Gardens, and it was fun talking to my dad who'd seen Great Gardens about why you need to see this thing. The Drones is a wonderful emulation of Vice. The Thin Blue Line gets taken apart, and The Eyes Don't Lie, which just is, that's one of the things you go back and you watch. There's so many little gems in there, and you think about all of those like true crime documentaries and stuff, and it's I think it's a must for anybody taking a documentary class too to realize this.
Yeah. So it's certainly exceptional. Check it out on Netflix. They're bite sized, man. They're that really fast, 22-minute format. And especially when you're thinking about it in what is normally long form content, right? Like they feel like they go by like that because you're watching these like as if you're used to lasting an hour, taking 20 minutes. They're just great.
Is that Andrew? Is that you?
Yes. Sorry.
That
was playing Gentle and Soft.
Okay.
Gentle and Soft by the Blue Jean Committee.
Yeah, it's the 20-minute time frame. 20 minutes was wonderful. That's what I loved most about it, I think, was the fact that they just did it. They did it great, and then it was done, and you could move on to the next one. Brian, you have a pick?
Yeah, man, I'm sure I talked about it before, but I'm going back and enjoying it for a second time with a very different attitude. Probably one of the best video games, certainly in the last year or two, but it is so rich and there's so many places it goes. But Fallout 4 is extraordinary, and I'm enjoying it. I didn't finish it my first time through. I got distracted, but I'm doing a build called One Punch Man, where you build a character in a very silly way. You put no points into his charisma, his intelligence. He's dumb as a rock. he can't do literally anything, but he's very strong and very agile. And because you're not running around picking up ammo or buying different guns or upgrading stuff, all you do, you suddenly have so much money to buy so many drugs, when all you do is take all the ammo and sell it and then buy drugs and then solve every problem with punching. It's really a blast. So if you played Fallout 4, try it again doing the One Punch Man build. It's a blast, and I don't know. I'm doing much faster this go around.
Are you streaming it? Are you streaming it?
I haven't been, mainly because it took me a while to get it working reliably, but now I have it on the streaming computer. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll take people for a. I have been using that as my selfish downtime, but now I'm far enough along that maybe I'll share the journey with everyone.
Yeah.
I have a pick that's not a selfish, pick of something that I did.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I've been obsessed with. So do you remember when they came out with, it was the iPad, the game, I don't know if it's on Android or not, the Room, the puzzle game?
Sure.
Really cool. You're solving little intricate, like a little box and stuff and trying to solve things. And it was great. It was like an award winner. It was a great game. Then they did the Room 2, which was shorter. And I remember solving that pretty quickly in like one sitting and being a little bit, Well, they launched the Room 3, and this thing is huge. Very, very big. Tons and tons of rooms, like to the point that like I thought if I'd been done halfway ago, I would have been very thrilled with, like, this is great. And I'm still in the middle of it. I'm doing a little 10 minutes of time here and there. The Room 3, I think, is fantastic. I think they clearly answered the problem with Room 2, which was just too damn short. And they've created a very, very involved, it's one of these, you're walking around this old study trying to solve all these different puzzles involving telescopes and stuff. I think the puzzle play is great. The hint system's pretty good, if only perhaps a little bit too aggressive. And sometimes because you're in the middle of something and a hint pops up and you think that you're doing it wrong, you're like, oh no, yeah, I don't think it affects you. But I love Room 3, and it's like $6, and it's like probably the best $6 I've spent in forever on probably an iPad game. The amount of detail that went into it is incredible. It's reminds me of everything I loved about Myst, and also it's making me really excited about what's this going to be like with really good VR, because these environments are really cool and neat. And, having played with, let's say, the HTC Vive with the feedback and all that, the handheld devices and, or controllers, I think I'm all for it. I'm going to say Room 3, we're watching the video for the trailer right now. It's really cool. Very, very well done. Very, very well done. I was surprised at how big it is. I'm still in the middle of it.
Right on.
Damn.
So, gentlemen, I think it's time we move on to the end of the show, and then we're going to go right into an episode of After Things, and we're going to do Weird Tank. We're going to help somebody out who has a business question, a creative question. We've got one already in the dock, and if you're listening live and you have one for us, you can shoot it to us. If we don't get it today, we'll try to get to it. So, till then, it's been weird. Oh, wait, one more addition.
Uh-oh.
I forgot. Starting this Wednesday, I believe that's Wednesday, I'm part of a Humble Bundle.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm doing a Humble Bundle with Wordfire Press, and it's going to be a collection of books. It's including previously unpublished books by Frank Herbert. We're going to have a new story, an unpublished story by Orson Scott Card that takes place in the Ender's Game universe. We've got books from Kevin J. Anderson, F. Paul Wilson, the guy who created the Repairman Jack series. So a great, great collection of stuff it's not there now, so that's going to be some other book bundle that's not us, but you'll see it Wednesday, and it's benefiting the Science Fiction Fantasy Writers Emergency Fund, which is a very, helps in critical cases, and the Challenger Science Center, which is a science education center dedicated to the Challenger astronauts and to promote science STEM education. So highly going to be a wonderful collection of books and stuff, and that's going to be available this Wednesday from Humble Bundle. It's one of those things, pay your own price, but I encourage you, everybody listening, to buy it.
Stay humble and pay money.
Yes.
Stay humble and bundle on.
Now it's been weird.
All right, cool. Run into the restroom.
Hey guys, just so you know, I'm gonna have to be out of here by 4 to do the WrestleMania thing. So
Okay, so keep it short. Got it.
I mean, y'all can keep going, but I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, whatevs. Be right back.
See what I have to deal with, guys. We can try this. Here, have you heard this one yet, Bryce?
No, what is it?
Here we go.
Fuck yeah! Well, this is a song about a white fucker named Chuck, and if you knew one thing, you knew he liked to fuck. He liked to fuck in front of paper, you see, envelope stationery on TV. So anyway, I stole his girl, banged her up the ass. Within was 69 and had a real gas. Chuck didn't care, he was watching some porn. I didn't realize this was going to be as filthy as it is. Anyway, I'm sure we'll play it on Night Attack.
When was that I don't remember that bit.
Neither do I.
I remember the
I
fuck
just
yeah.
got an
That was in the
email from
pre-show.
the great Grandmaster Steve Cogswell, and it just says the Ballad of Jeremiah Gables, and I'm like, I have no idea what this is, which is why I played it, despite the fact that it's disgusting.
Oh my gosh. Where did I pull up that? Weird tank.
Yo.
Yow.
It's amazing people don't ask me to go dance at their parties more.
All right, boss. I'm ready when you're ready to be ready. Are you ready?
Ready?
All right, take it away in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the After Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young
Hello.
and Brian Brushwood.
Oh, yes, it's true.
Gentlemen, so this is the show where we talk about being a creative professional, and being a creative professional myself, I'm gonna plug right at the top. I have a new book out, The Cure for Writer's Block. It's 99 cents right now, just for a few more days. So by the end of this week, if you get this podcast, it probably won't be 99 cents. So I would get it now. Snap it up right now. Stock up, because winter's coming.
and you may not. You may suddenly find yourself with a bad case of the writer's blocks, and there you'll be with blocks all over your writing appendages, and you'll be thinking, I should have been talking like a pirate and getting Andrew Main's book.
Because I had to chop off my hand.
And replace it with an ebook.
Gentlemen, we have from Shannon, who lovelily signed off her post as just another fangirl. No, you're right now. You may be the only fangirl who sent in a thing to.
I mean, she does. She does have a blog. A blog. Just another fangirl 2016.wordpress.com.
No, she's Brian. Why can't I get personal emails from Jeff Bezos and
I'm sorry, I don't mean to take this away from you.
I have so little in life, Brian, and I have to imagine the rest.
So I have not read this email yet. Have you guys already read it?
I scanned it. Would Justin like to read it?
Justin can.
I thought there was the
everybody.
pause where we had to ask officially. Sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
So to start with, I guess I should say that my end goal is to be a writer. I originally saw fiction writing as an option, but over the past while, I've started to look in other directions. I started writing movie reviews to combat writer's block and simply be writing something. While I haven't really thought about doing much with these, a friend of mine is the manager of a local cinema and has asked me to write reviews to be posted on the cinema's Facebook page. After some discussion, we came to the conclusion that perhaps the best way to go about it will be to start a blog where I can have separate segments for movie reviews, book reviews, and short stories. She would then share a link to my blog posts, only the movie-related ones, obviously, to her page. I would like to eventually be paid as a writer, both for my fiction and for my reviews, but recognize that that is something that I need to work up to. And for now, I'm just happy writing and sharing things with people. My questions are, 1, how do I get a mailing list going for my blog? I have a Gmail account set aside just for this. Is there a way to control that? I know I've heard you talk about using MailChimp, but assuming, and please correct me if I have this wrong, that I can swap over to using something like this fairly easily once I have more followers. For now, I just really want to be getting my blog out to people. 2, should I pay for a domain for my blog? I'm currently using a free blog on WordPress. The domain I want is available, but I got a little confused when I looked into it further. There's a price per year and the charge to keep your details private. I can upgrade my current blog without you losing anything from it. Would you recommend doing this right away? 3, how do I go about finding someone to host my blog? I've started using WordPress, but I've heard you people talk about having a host for your website and also hosting companies. One ad I heard for a hosting company stated that they can move everything across and all that. Is it a good idea to have a host, and what are the benefits? And 4, and this is a big 4, how do I get people to my blog? I'm hoping that a few people will come across my blog from the cinema's Facebook page and maybe become regulars. But how else would you recommend getting the word out? As strange as it may seem, I want to remain somewhat anonymous to begin with when it comes to movie reviews, as I live in quite a small town and really don't want people to read the reviews because they want to read them, not because they think they know the author. But I also want to reach a wider audience than just my local community. As I write this, I find myself thinking that I could contact some of the other small cinemas that are run by the same company as the local one, will make them aware of the reviews and give them the option, the same option as their local theater is. Sorry, this is long-winded. Thank you in advance for the help, as well as any encouragement that I have already received by listening to After Things. Yours sincerely, Shannon.
Man, these are really, really good questions across the board. But I almost feel like there's a separate category of decisions, and I'd be curious to hear if you agree with this, Andrew. It sounds like Shannon is making that all-important leap of going from nothing to something. And when that's the case, I feel like all the questions she asked, which are important and eventually will all have to be dealt with, I feel like you notice that the first 3 questions, are all stuff that eventually she's going to have to figure out. But then the number 4th one is really the only one that matters. The answer is start creating, because whatever it is you think that's in you, start finding your voice. And the only way to do that is to do it. And then everything else, you'll figure this out down the road.
I actually read this during the break and I made some notes. And I think that the thing that she has going for her is the fact that started from somebody with a local movie theater asking her to do reviews. And that may be the thing that differentiates it from the thousands, the millions of other people out there reviewing stuff. The internet is filled with people reviewing stuff, and it's hard to be somebody out there going in to do this when, guess what? The world is filled with that. Where do you go in and do something different? And I would suggest that if your friend is the manager of a local cinema and you have an opportunity, why not try doing like a live thing? Like say, hey, we're going to do a screen. Like imagine if you said, hey, we're doing a Wednesday screening of Batman versus Superman. Then afterwards, we're going to do a discussion and I might do a podcast stream of it or something. And then I'm going to do a blog post. If you have an opportunity to be in front of real people, if you say, hey, we're doing a discussion screening of this, be the host of it. Before, introduce yourself to everybody, say afterwards, we're going to do this, because then you may have, okay, maybe not this week, 300 people there, but you could have for future movies, if you did something special like that in real space, that could be awesome, because you go up in front of these people and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm the reviewer. I do a reviewer section here, and let's talk about this. That is gold. That is a wonderful opportunity, and I think that more people should think about how do you go do things in real space to capitalize on that. So if I had what she had in front of me, I would say to the manager, say, okay, can we do like a Wednesday or whatever sort of day that is the softest or whatever? Let's do a screening. We think of something special. We tell people there will be a discussion afterwards, and you have to think of what that is. And she hosts it. Then she's creating content that's different than just doing reviews. And she can build a fan base from there, because, what do we do after we see a big movie? We want to talk about it. We want to sit around and tell people like, hey, this is really cool, or this is neat, or this is what I didn't like. And if you use that as an opportunity for that, I think that could be a great starting point. So think local, and you could probably build up a very big fan base. Yes, you can take your emails that people have and then import them into MailChimp. MailChimp has a free option. I suggest you get a MailChimp account now and you get their sign up thing, because it's super easy to just create, hey, go here and sign up. I've never used WordPress, the WordPress.com, but if you're just looking for a very easy blogging site, there are 2 options for straight up blogging. Tumblr, if you want something with a little more features, but it's going to, there will be a cost at a certain point, that is Squarespace. But if you just want straight up free, use Tumblr. But between MailChimp and Tumblr, you can start something going, and then I would try to focus on something doing live.
I think 100%. I mean, to me, the biggest thing you are thinking about all the right questions. To the easiest to answer are: should I pay for a domain for my blog, and should I find someone to host my blog? Number 2, yes. Use domain.com and use offer code ScamSchool.
Get 15% off.
Number 3, you don't need to worry about hosting the blog if you are on one of those other services. So if you're on Tumblr, right now, if you're on a .wordpress, then you're not going to have to worry about that. So I would say, yeah, don't stress about the hosting, but certainly getting the domain that you want is important.
And they all have tools to put your domain, your .com attached to that site. So even if you have a subdomain right now and you get a .com, they will have a tool to put it in.
It's the tools that are out there right now are incredible. Like, we first dipped into WordPress 10 years ago, and then going back in there and looking what you can do with your own user install of WordPress is incredible.
Just insane, yeah.
But just for a straight up the advantage of doing a Facebook page and posting it there is there's a lot of really good community tools. The problem is you've got to make sure everybody has the notifications turned on so they see what you're saying, which is why Facebook for me is where things end up. It's not where things originate, because of just the dead-end nature of that. And Facebook at a whim can change their algorithm and nobody will see what I put up there, which is frustrating. They want you to pay to reach the audience of people who said, yes, tell me more. But it's whenever you're going out there and doing what everyone else is doing, what Brian says, start doing the thing and see where you can have an idea where you want it to go. But it's, there are struggling people. There are people working, major critics for newspapers, wondering where they're going to work next year because, that's so problematic. But you have an advantage, and you could, if you say, hey, I'm shy in front of people, like, well, organize something. Like, find somebody, like, go to the local comic book shop and say, hey, who knows the most about Batman? Who knows the most about Superman? Let's have them debate after the show,
Well, and that's a really good point, is you can be a part of the experience. It could be, the Ultimate Fanboy Showdown brought to you by Shannon. And also, Shannon doesn't even get on stage. Somebody else introduces it, the two other people compete, and then you stand up and just wave at the end, maybe just remind people that you have a new review coming out. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can be associated with things and not have to be that other thing.
Well, and what has changed is everything is audience centric now. All the best things have always been audience centric, but the best things now, to succeed now, you have to be you have to know who your audience is, and you have to know what they want, and you have to know what makes them excited, because that's what makes them want to share things. And when they share things, that's how new people that are qualified to be fans of yours or read your writing or get it out or build a distribution center or strategy is built. So the great advantage that you have in building something is you have a long road ahead of you of understanding what the nexus between what you want to write and what people want to read is, and try as many fun things as possible to find out what the explosive element is. And when you get that, build around it.
Yeah. I think, look for what do people want? People want an experience. People are looking for new experiences and things like that. And if you can offer that in a way that serves what you're trying to do. I do a lot of live talks I do a lot of I haven't launched a writing podcast, but I've been doing a ton of Facebook live talks about writing and creativity, because trying to schedule something and build up an audience is scary to me. But just what I've got time to kill to go hop in there and chat with people is great. And that's helped me a lot. I've seen the effect of that, of people who are now on my email list and following what I've been doing because I've been doing that, and not with some big plan, this is what I'm going to talk about, but just, hey, let's talk about this. And if you want to talk about movies or other things, find ways for people to do that and create a conversation and be the facilitator, and then build from there. So.
Agreed. But seriously, go buy a domain.
But also good on you for going, for doing something besides just talking about doing a thing. Do the thing.
Absolutely. And it's, sometimes the rewards in these things, we have this idea that we want to do these things because, we see other creative people doing this stuff and we're like, man, that's what I want to be doing. And their answer is that, I get this a lot. Like, I get people who email me or whatever, like, hey, I want to write a book. Do you want to co-write a book for me? And, I have the idea, and could you help me put this out there? And every writer gets this. And it's amusing, because it's like, like me going to, knocking on Brian's door, like, hey, Brian, I have a map. Do you want to drive? You want to drive? I have an idea where I want to go. Do you want to drive me there and go there and maybe pay for
Well,
gas?
I just figured because and this is an actual thing that happened. I got somebody calling me about a television opportunity, and the television opportunity was that the guy had an idea for a show, and he's like, well, there's this development deal. I was like, well, what's the development deal? And it's like somebody shot video of me once. And I was like, well, then what's your idea? How do I tie to this? He's like, well, I figured if you and me did a show together, because you have that show and you've done this a whole bunch, then, it could be really huge. And, and I was like, well, what's the idea? He's like, well, I'm this guy. And then, you do all your stuff. And so, like, if your pitch is take something that exists on its own and staple an unnecessary appendage to it, it's probably not going to go over really, really well. You want to be a valuable part of it.
It reveals the weakness in the one thing. If you need to staple it onto something, we're doing these videos now for the Contender that hopefully we'll shoot next week and we'll start coming out soon after that, where we have a funny idea to kind of wrap around the cards, right? So when we were thinking of it and we were trying to come up with ideas for how to showcase it, the thought was, well, listen, let's come up with the best way that we can heighten the natural funny element of these cards. Because if we're trying to come up with other elements that are funnier than the cards, then we are not making the cards look good, right? Like we are just coming up with other elements that we are stapling onto it, which would make the cards look weak and not something that you would want to buy, as opposed to strong and something that you want to bring into your life. And that's something where, those are the hardest lessons that you got to learn is looking critically back at your own stuff and being like, oh, wow, like I need to work on this. I need to do these kind of elements. I need to make this better. I need to make this different. And giving a realistic idea of where you are, creatively. And I know that certainly all three of us is that's something that we've had to do a lot.
The hard part, the fun part's the creative part. The fun part is really the creative part. And when you haven't had the opportunity to fully see something realized or whatever, you think the creative part's the hard part. But then you realize that no, that's the for Brian and me was going on stage and doing the magic. That was the fun part. After we practiced, after we had it done, that was the fun part. Getting to the gig, getting everything loading, getting everything set up, booking the gig, all of that other stuff, which is invisible. The invisible stuff is the really, 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 really difficult part. And, and somebody goes to Brian, like, Brian, let me partner with you on all of your success because you've already done all the hard work. And if I just partner with you, then, my problems are solved. It's like, well, that's the one you're not bringing to the table, and also that.
Well, and of course the real betrayal is that's what a lot of people think, but the truth is no, your problems are just beginning if you jump ahead. I don't want to say that there's. One of the biggest deceptions in success and careers and stuff is this perception that there are ladders and you start at the bottom of the ladder and you climb up the ladder. Most of the people who I know who've made it big have rejected that very notion. Maybe they did a couple of rungs on one ladder and then they're like, this is dumb. Let me pull this couch over. Let me balance these 2 tables on top of it. Let me climb up here. And then, yes, at some point, maybe they get high enough that they're all like, hey, you realize you're equivalent to like this really high rung on this ladder. And then maybe they jump over for a little bit on the ladder. Next thing you know, they're flying in a space car. This is a terrible metaphor. But my point is, you don't have to start at the bottom of something and work your way up. You can define your own path to success, but you got to do something. And that's why I was saying at the beginning, the biggest thing is going from nothing to something, because most people don't even make that jump. They get as far as the idea of thinking they should do a thing, and then they become all talk, and then they manufacture this wonderful web of reasons why they never got around to doing a thing, and they're still waiting on a callback. Well, I called Brian Brushwood. We talked like 3 times on the phone about this TV thing. So yeah, I'm in talks about this TV thing. It's like, it doesn't work that way. You've got to go out and you got to make things. You got to be having other projects that are part of your ecosystem. It is,
I get this about writing all the time. Like, oh yeah, one is like people like, I would like to, like partner with me, help me write this thing. And it's like, well, no, it's not, it's not going to work. I've never co-written something. I will at some point, but I'm going to work with somebody who brings something to the table too is that it's that you're asking somebody to go do all the hard work for you, and people don't realize what's involved. And I talk to people who are like, well, I want to, like I see, I would rather, I want to go with a publisher because I don't want to have to go out and promote. I'm like, well, guess what? You're going to have to do more of that with a publisher than on your own, because you have to do what you think works, and they're going to ask you to do what they think works. And so there's even much harder work. And the idea that you just create this thing and hope that everybody finds it is not true. That is really not true. I think there are people who think that you just do something great and the world finds it. In this world, that's not what happens. And I've had people bring up examples. I'm like, yeah, but this person happened to be best friends with so-and-so who reblogged this, and that took off. If that hadn't happened, they never would have had that success.
Well,
because
I can't talk about behind the scenes stuff, but recently there was an extraordinary moment where I found myself in a position to make a call because I had an idea for a project, and I was able to pick up the phone and call a person.
Asked me if you could be part of my thing where you and I know, Brian.
No, but it was a case where it's like I had an idea, and on the one hand, it felt so unfair where I made a call, and 48 hours later, it sounded like some things were happening. And I'm like, man, this feels wrong because this feels like the fantasy of what people believe successful stuff is made out of. It's like, oh, I just have an idea. Let me make a call. Oh, now it's happening. But the truth is, it's like, no, the person I called was the one person out of the 1,000 people I've interacted with on the 20 different shows I've done over all the different years, out of the thousands of stage show. I knew that was the right person to call. And the only reason I knew is because I had met this person so many times. The idea I had, the only reason it was the right idea was because I had so many. I'm standing on a graveyard of failed ideas, of me trying over and over and over again. And it's like, and yes, and the timing, the only reason I was able to call at this right time in the right circumstance and have the idea go somewhere is because it's been 17 goddamn years of me doing this. And then, and when you wait 17 years, you might recognize the right time and the right opportunity to make that right call. But it's only because of all that wrong stuff that you ever have a success. And even now, as I'm saying it, the thing I was calling about very likely still won't ever go anywhere or become anything. But in that moment, it felt unfair, like I was leapfrogging, like I was doing the fantasy of what people think success looks like. And even then I knew it was a lie while I was happening.
Hey, but Brian, like you're a guy that you have earned a tremendous amount of credibility, and that person may know a lot of people that would go to them and say, what about this? And the answer is going to be meh. But you're a guy that's produced what we'd arguably call a weekly television show every week for like forever. You're a guy that has worked really, really, really hard into that. And so when it comes to you having an idea or a suggestion or something, you've proven your ability, your track record to follow through and make something happen. And that credibility, that's one of the hard parts is, when somebody says, hey, work with me on this. What have you done? Well, nothing, because nobody ever gave me a shot. And like, I had a lot of people gave me shots. Like my first big shot in magic was Rand Woodbury letting me help clean up his warehouse. That was my big shot in show business, and feed his cougar. That's what I got to do. That was my lucky break. But it was. I was able, from going and doing that grunt work for Rand, I was able to then build my own magic show, go travel overseas, and go do these other things because I didn't show up on his door and like, hey, Rand, would you lend me magic props and write letters of recommendation to me and also give me your entire magic mailing list so I can sell my own magic books? I got all those things from Rand. But after,
you had to pay your dues and you had to be a part of it. All right, guys, I got to get out of here, but I love everybody.
All right.
You just summed it up. I'm like, all right, we're done. I'm going.
Yeah. Peace out, man.
I just didn't want to leave. I'm sorry.
No. All right. Just pretend to faint. And it will cover for you. Okay, good.
So what you're trying to say, so I could leave, damn it.
Yeah, man. I don't know that we really answered Shannon's question at all, but instead you and I just definitely got fired up about things that matters.
I think that every case you want to look at it, and we've had a couple cases where people wanted to do video shows or things like that, and they had an opportunity to do something local. And if you, I did WonderCon. I showed up at WonderCon to go do one panel, and then to go talk to people. Because, I like to meet people in that environment. And because I know that, going out there and meeting people face to face I got emails afterwards from people that met me there and it created new fans and people interested in what I'm doing. And I met people who are doing interesting things too. for Shannon to build up her thing rather than be another voice on the internet, another anonymous person out there creating something. If you can go meet people in person in front of a movie theater or whatever like that and say, hey, I do reviews, I do this, we do these things once a month, once a week here, boom, you've got an audience and you can build from that.
So I'll tell you what, there's a weird question where it's like, how long... the phrase "fake it till you make it," I think, is a good sentiment wrapped up in a unfortunately disingenuous statement. A more accurate portrayal would be to I like a little bit better. Act like the person you want to be. Soon you'll be the person who you act like. And at some point, like for example, and we've talked about this before. When I first read Ryan Holiday's first book, Trust Me, I'm Lying, I read it because I thought it was somebody disingenuously revealing the nasty tricks and tips to that he used in his multi-year career running PR for American Apparel, and disingenuously saying like, oh, don't do these things because that's only how I made my career or whatever. But the last half of the book really took me to task because he goes on to just utterly eviscerate the 24-hour blog cycle and how easy it is to manipulate that stuff and how easy it is to disingenuously get stuff ahead by underhanded tactics. And it became clear by the end of the book that he genuinely did seem to regret his time and the lessons that he learned working in that PR field. And he's now 2 books later. He's wrote The Obstacle is the Way, which is a wonderful introduction to Stoicism. You read about Marcus Aurelius, and you realize that the challenges you face as you try to get from point A to point B are their own reward. They are the solution of why you bother to do anything. And he's got a new book coming out as well, and his recommendations are great. And there's some part of my mind, and forgive me, Ryan, if you ever hear me say this, because we're now friends. There's some part of my mind that asked like, yeah, but remember how you originally thought he was maybe disingenuously just, revealing all this stuff? And then, what if he isn't really a nice guy and he's not really motivated by all these things and stuff? And the answer was, well, at what point does it not matter? At what point do we allow him... In the case of thinking of Ryan Holiday, like we're now on the case where multiple years he's been nothing but a gentleman, and he truly has other people's interest in his heart, and he wants to do good by other people. But there's that first impression bias where it's like, yeah, but didn't you originally think blank or whatever? And I think about that in terms of career growth. It's like, well, how many years? Because it's still weird for me, Andrew, to hear you say, for 8 years you've made a weekly TV show, and I'm like, well, yeah, but not really, and make some excuses. But the fact is, as you say this, it's now April 3rd, April 6th, 2008 was when Scam School premiered. It's been 8 years and 400 plus episodes, not to mention any of the spinoff stuff. And I don't know. It's like, no matter how scared on the inside I think I am, at some point you have to acknowledge how many years does it take of someone being a guy till, it doesn't matter if they are faking it.
Well, Brian, if you're you're going to have enough self-loathing and
oh no, I'll be 73 having the same conversation, sir.
Yeah, it's never going to set in. But that's part of what drives us too. Is I mean, people, it's people who look at us from the outside have no understanding how both of us are just filled with self-loathing, and how many times a day do I call myself stupid or just hate myself more than this smiling guy here, will ever let you know.
Do you know what it is for me? And I don't know that I mentioned this on this show. I think one of the God, I would love to track this down. Maybe there's someone out there who has access to a LexisNexis account and can find the exact moment. But I want to say I was 9 years old, so this would have been 1984, maybe 1986, maybe I was 11. And there was some, you know what? Now that I think about it, it might have been close to when Tremors came out. But Kevin Bacon was talking about his long and storied career, and people asked him what the key to his success was, or maybe it was an offhanded thing. I'm sure I'm misremembering all this, but I remember him saying, Well, I don't regard myself as a naturally talented actor. You know, you've got so-and-so, you got Tom Cruise, you got Robert De Niro, you got these guys. They're superstars. They could do this. I'm not that. So I figure all I have to do is just work harder than all of them. And something about the relaxed simplicity with which he said that, the idea that you don't have to be born with a thing, that you can compensate for a lack of it just by working harder than everyone else, like that really stuck with me. And what's funny is my self-loathing is so bad that I don't even want to compare myself to Kevin Bacon. Outside, you know, it's like, oh, no, I'm not as good as Kevin Bacon. I have to work twice as hard as Kevin Bacon does because I'm so lousy. And so I don't know. There's something wonderful about that sentiment, the idea that there's other bank accounts you can draw on to get ahead.
And Brian, that's the secret. I mean, that's the secret, is that like 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to be a writer. And the problem is that I was not a guy that had been writing every day. It was not a guy that had studied lit in college. I didn't go to college. I'm a guy that, you know, did not have all the things that, you know, normally went in for writers, you know, to become successful writers. What I did have, number one, was, you know, I had developed an ability to analyze. I knew that I was very analytical, which was probably one of the reasons I hesitated to write. And I could break other books down and analyze what they worked, you know, why they didn't. And I was very good at developing processes to get better at stuff. And so when I said, well, I'm going to become a writer, I'm like, all right, you know what I'm going to do is, you know, I'm going to write faster than anybody I know so I can write a lot and I can keep churning things out, making a pile of chips. I'm going to do as much as I can. So instead of taking 10 years to get to where I want to get to, I'm going to try to get there in a year.
Which is a brilliant thing, because basically you're saying, okay, you know, Stephen King wrote this many lines. He had this many good books, this many bad books. He says he wrote this many in the background. You know, all I got to do is just get started. It's a matter of numbers. You can't go through, you know, let's say I'm half as good as Stephen King. All I have to do is write twice as much in as fast as possible, and then I have a chance to catch the lower end of that spectrum.
Yeah, I think that if you have a process of improvement to get better and to evaluate things, you can do great work, particularly when it comes to things like writing, where it happens in secret, it happens in shadows. People only see the thing that you put out there in front of them, and you can make that better. And, you know, before I set foot on the set for my TV show, I had been making dozens of magic videos and practicing talking to camera, because I realized, you know, years before that I wanted to do TV, and that the best way for me to do that was not going to be by becoming a stage performer. I mean, I was a stage performer, but not by pursuing that any further. It was going to be learning how to do this, how to talk.
No. You are 100% right, because, and what's funny is there's different flavors of it that matter, because the way you talk up close and one-on-one for close-up magic is not the way you talk on stage to project, is not the way you speak in sound bites when you're being interviewed, is not the way you speak when you know someone has to edit it into a type package, which is also not the way you speak when you're doing an interview format, one person mic essentially kind of thing, like you and I are doing right now. All of those are different skills, and you have to start at zero with each one of them.
How many hours of finished footage had you produced before of, you know, Scam School and other stuff before you did the Hacking the System, available now on Netflix?
You know what? Let me take you back, since we're at the 8-year anniversary of Scam School. I'm sure I told you this story. You and I first connected right as I was working on the failed court TV pilot for a show about scams and cons. And when you look at that footage, oh my God, is it cringy? It's awful. I just want to share it with the world for how terrible it was, because my sum total of experience of performing in that kind of environment was the day I showed up for the development footage. It's like, we're shooting it today. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then they're like, yeah, just talk about this and explain that and do this other stuff. And they're like, is there a script? And they're like, oh, you know, you just talk about it, make it happen. And so it's like, holy crap. And so Scam School was born out of my frustration with that. But there was the year I had to spend in the wilderness. There was the thing got passed on. I was so upset. It was like, I want to have a TV show. I want to reach a lot of people. I think I have stuff to say that they would care about. And then it's like, well, let's make a list. What is it that the people who are those gatekeepers want to see in their hosts? And then number one thing at the list was, well, they want experience. They want you to have already done the thing because they know that you could do it. And so that's why I created the Brian Brushwood on the Road series. If you search on YouTube, BBOTR, or just go through the back catalog of my personal channel is youtube.com/scamschool, or I'm sorry, youtube.com/schwood.com, all spelled out. But all I had is a couple of super low resolution digital ELF cameras that recorded by 320 by 240. It's a great double color change right there. And the audio is terrible. But I did all the editing. I did all the shooting. We just sort of figured out what stories were happening on the road. Over that year, I learned that Brian, the editor, had a very different opinion of what he wanted from Brian, the host, at any moment. And so I learned to speak in ways that Brian, the editor, could handle. And then by the time that, we got to Scam School was pitched, I actually had a few television appearances and this stuff to point to, and that made all the difference. And as far as the TV show, I guess, I don't know, 100, 200, 300, no, I guess like 300 or 400 hours of polished, edited video at that point. Wow, that's really weird to think of.
Mm-hmm. And working on what makes you comfortable in front of the camera, how to be you. How to be the version that's you. And so there are corollaries to this in everything. In writing, they talk about your first million words that, publish, after you've done your first million words, publish. I'm in the middle of editing a book right now that I wrote last year. I've written 1 million words since I wrote this book.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
And it's kind of interesting because I have notes from an editor that are like, what about this? What about this? And I'm in the mind like, yeah, that's good. But there's a third way that's apparent to me now. And it's a very stressful situation. But point is that, my goal was to get better and better. And so I said, I'm going to do 1 million words a year. And that's not a whole lot if you think about it. It's, a little over 3,000 words a day. But I was just going to just keep doing that and stop and analyze, write a book, read a book on writing, analyze what I did before and keep moving forward. And, I don't want to brag, but if you look at the reviews for Station Breaker, you'll see that there is a clear, and Public Enemy Zero has great reviews.
But here's what's great is I have no doubt that you're cut from the same cloth as I am, where even as you read those reviews, this is not, I have arrived at the destination. You're like, oh, this is good. This is my latest benchmark showing that I've improved to this level of quality. My brand value and my fans are at this level. I assume we're looking to even much, much higher heights and much more enthusiastic reviews.
The exercise regime is working. I need to continue. That's the bottom. And it's like, if you're an athlete, if you're an Olympic athlete, you don't win first place in your high school track meet and then decide you're ready to go to the Olympics and you've reached the peak of what you need to do. You say, I think I can play this game. Now I got to figure out how to step it up and how to devote every other aspect of my life to improving this.
Exactly. Hey man, you want to real quick talk about picks for all this stuff?
Surely.
Yeah, you know what? Here, I'll go first. Since you did a plug for your pick, I'm going to do a plug for my pick, reminding everyone that Hacking the System, the end of a 10-year journey, hacking the system in so many ways, is the culmination of what I had hoped to do back in that. Jason Murphy and I co-wrote all of this stuff for this Scams and Cons show that we pitched to Court TV. Echoes of it still survive in Hacking the System, available right now on Netflix. And it really, really matters that you guys watch it on Netflix because it's been hanging out on the trending list for a long time. And already we're trying to figure out what the next iteration of this bizarre journey would look like.
I think that I want to double down on that. Check out Hacking the System. If you're on Netflix, give it all the stars. Give it all the stars. All the stars. More stars, the better. More stuff.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
It's been after. I said it. See?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Hey, the chat room got real lively at the end there. I wonder why.
Oh, is it? Yeah, everyone's talking about WrestleMania?
About wrestling, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're talking about belts. I'm like, I literally thought it was a fashion thing. I swear to God.
All right, well, let's get off the air so Justin can.
All right, bye. Love you guys.